around products or processes. Whereas what design thinking advocates very strongly is that it is all about solving a problem from a customer perspective. And what I mean by customer is not necessarily somebody who pays money for you. In my definition, a customer is anybody whose problem you wish to solve. And that anybody could be your spouse, it could be your children, your parents, your supplier, your seller, your supervisor, manager, anybody for that matter. So that is what is design thinking the way I understand it.
Great, great. Thanks, sir. Thanks. I think that makes it very simple. That um, there is a clear difference between design, as we all understand, and design thinking. Because design thinking, if I just use your words,
That's right.
it's about the thinking part of it. That how I am able to think for a customer, think for a user, and have a problem solving approach towards it. So moving on, typically innovation.
Absolutely.
If we really look at the whole narrative of innovation, it has always been tech driven, right? The imagery which usually gets created about innovation is like some R&D stuff, some high tech things happening, gadgets and flying cars and all of that. So where does this whole design driven approach towards innovation comes? Where does this is located in that narrative?
Yeah. So the differentiation of organizations has shifted from differentiating on products, that my product is better than your product, to differentiating on services, that I provide better services than your services. And now the distinction between organizations is experiences. That can I give a much more compelling experience to my customer vis-a-vis you? And let me give you a couple of examples on where design has really moved away from designing better products to designing better service and of crafting more superior experiences.
Okay.
And this is a case study which I recently read in L.R. Natarajan's book on Nuggets of Innovation. So the story goes like this. So he used to work in Tanishq, the Titan group of companies, jewelry business. And as a ghost shopper, he went to one of the Titan outlets to check how they are experiencing or engaging the customers, etc. And he went with his wife. After about an hour investigating, talking to the salespeople, looking at the various models, and he allowed his wife to go around and look at the various jewelry. Now the time came for him to go out of the place. After 1 hour, if you go out of a jewelry shop without buying anything, then people might suspect you that maybe you are from competition. Yeah. And that's where your reputation really takes a hit. So what he went is that he went to his wife and said that why don't you pick up something? Whatever you like, you go ahead and pick it up. And she said, no, I can't pick it up because I forgot my spectacles. And without my spectacles, I can't see the design and I can't pick it up. So L.R. Natarajan said that, let me pick it up on your behalf. Would you be comfortable if I pick it up on your behalf? And she said, no, I can't trust you with jewelry making choices. I have to pick it up. So he was in a catch-22 situation.
Okay.
Wife did not have spectacles to check the design, and he could not walk out of the shop without buying anything. And wife would not allow him to buy on her behalf. Looking at this conversation, a salesperson from Tanishq came down to them and said that, sir, may I help you? What happened? Can I do that? And very candidly, L.R. Natarajan said that, hold on for a moment. I think there might be some network connectivity issue. Just a moment. Let me change my network settings.
Sure, sir. I think if you may want to keep the video off for a while, that might help.
Sure. So is audio fine?
Yeah, audio is fine now. It's audible.
Audio is okay, right? Okay, just give me a moment.
Yeah.
Then I'll carry on with my story. And this is a very interesting story on how design thinking can be really ingrained into managing customer experiences. And that's something which I just read yesterday. So it's very fresh in my mind on how design-driven innovation can really make a significant difference. Just give me a moment, please. Okay. All right. So as I was saying that, so the conversation went on between LR Natarajan and his wife was almost leaving that showroom, and one of the
Mhm.
salespersons comes up to LR Natarajan and says, "Sir, can I be of any assistance?" And Narayan says that my wife has actually forgotten her spectacles, and you would not believe. Then in the next 1 minute, the salesperson comes with a tray of
Mhm.
spectacles,
Oh,
all the
wow.
numbers of spectacles possible from +1 to -4.
Wow.
And he was so zapped, saying that, hey, how is it possible that a jewelry shop carries spectacles? And he said that, sir, this is a very common problem that we have seen with customers, and I thought it might be useful to you. That is
Very
a
nice.
level to which the company has gone to have customer intimacy, right? Second example is again from the Tata Group, which I would like to offer to you, would be about the Taj Group of hotels, and that's a universally known example that how 15 people of the
Mm.
Taj Group of hotels paid the price of their own life to save some 1,500 guests on the
True.
fateful day,
Yeah.
and in 2008. And the point is that what motivates these people to go out of the call of their duty to
Mm.
go and talk to customers and save the lives of the customer. So both of these examples are not about product design or technology involvement, but it's about experience management. So I think no longer can it be said that my product has to be better than your product. However,
Mhm.
what can be said and what should be said, in my opinion, is that is my services better than your services? Is the way I give my experience can be better than your experience? And there are very few companies in the world which have gone ahead, and one such company that comes to my mind is Amazon.
Yeah.
Look at how Amazon has ensured that the design of the Fire TV stick remote. Now, if
Mm.
any one of you has used the Fire TV stick remote, you would realize that but there's a lot of advantages. So the traditional belief that we had was that more features is equal to more advantages and more
Mm.
benefits for the customer is now getting challenged, and we now have this new ethos saying that maybe in the new world we can be in a situation where less features might have more benefit. That's why design is not about product or technology, but about experience. So that's what I think about design.
Great. So, I think very well connected that it and it's a direct impact, right? Means the way you just gave these examples, it directly speaks to the customer and has a direct impact on the experience that somebody carries with a brand or with a company. And one of the key defining elements of this is the
That's
empathy
right.
or understanding the felt or the latent need of a customer. But beyond empathy,
Mhm.
are there any other defining aspects of this approach which are in particularly
That's
more valuable
yeah,
to business?
absolutely. So there are three aspects that make design thinking peculiarly interesting for a business perspective. The first is starting from empathy,
Okay.
and empathy versus sympathy. And I would like to give that very contrasting example. And usually I try to narrate my point with examples because examples have this very strong ability of connecting with people, and people often remember the examples.
Yes, sir.
Look at the contrasting fate of Tata Nano and Tata Ace.
Hmm.
Even if the team that designed Tata Nano and Tata Ace was almost the same team, Girish Wagh led both the teams. But the reason why Tata Nano went up to not become a blockbuster product, whereas Tata Ace became actually a category creator.
Hmm.
Today, a Tata Ace is sold every 3 minutes. That is the sort of volume that being done with the Tata Ace business. So now, if I look at the contrast between Tata Nano and Tata Ace, one of the critical contrast is starting point. The story of Tata Nano, and he saw a bunch of four people on a bike in the middle of the rain, and he felt pity for them, saying that maybe they need a better car. But he didn't go and talk to them that, do you need a car, or do you have enough parking space for the car, or perhaps would you have enough affordance to buy petrol for the car. Whereas the starting point of Tata Ace was empathy. So Tata Ace started from empathy and Tata Nano started from sympathy.
Hmm.
You see the difference? Empathy
Yeah.
versus sympathy. In
Very
the
nice.
case of Tata Nano, Ratan Tata felt pity for these people. Are
Hmm.
bichare. Whereas in the case of Tata Nano, in the case of Tata Ace, they felt and understood the need of the customer by doing surveys. And one of the very
I think we had lost him for a while. Let's wait till he connects back. But till then, guys, if you have any queries, anything as a
sorry,
yeah, no problem.
yeah, I'm back.
Please, sir, please continue. We
I was saying the difference between Tata Nano and Tata Ace was that Tata Nano started from, yeah, Tata Nano started from the position of sympathy, whereas Tata Ace from the perspective of empathy. That is the first, is the fact that how do you look at innovation from the perspective of iteration, which is you come up with an idea and you realize that the idea is not working particularly well. Then how do you keep iterating on top of that particular idea and make it better and make it work? And an example that I can offer is perhaps automobile industry. Look at the case of Maruti Suzuki. Maruti Suzuki dominates the Indian automobile market with about 54% market share. And the reason Maruti has such a humongous market share in India is not because Maruti cars are better than any other car. There are cars from other automobile makers also which are competitively priced. But what Maruti has managed to do is to iterate on the car and giving so many other services along with the car, like the Maruti driving school, genuine accessories, genuine parts, Maruti True, and a whole host of services which are over and above what a typical car company would give. And nobody in the Indian car space has the range of services that Maruti offers. And that's the reason Maruti has such a dominant market share. That is the iterative thinking, that how do I iterate on a product and make it better. And the third aspect is what we call as visualization. Visualization means instead of speaking about an idea, or instead of even writing the idea down, why not draw the idea? And if you look at some of the companies and the offices that they have so much of open space available and given to them so that they can go out and start sketching their ideas, start doodling their ideas. So if I were to call out the three core principles of design thinking, the first one would be empathy, the second one would be iteration, and the third would be visual thinking. That how do you really visualize your thinking? And how do you make others see your idea and not just hear your idea, write your idea? So these are the aspects I would like to call out.
thanks, sir. Thanks again. Although the conversation continues, but I'm also kind of feeling so glad that you're able to break it down into the right packets for all of us to understand this topic. So thanks for that. And the examples and the case studies are really very insightful. I mean, they are all like we see it every day in front of us, but the insights that you are sharing with us are really helpful. uh, Moving on, like so now we understand, yeah, that these are the components, or these are the kind of basics, building blocks of this design driven innovation. But how does one go about learning these things? Can it be learned, or is it a kind of act of a genius, or is it something which can be nurtured over a period of time? How does that work when it comes to the learning part of design driven innovation?
The first thing that we need to understand is that design thinking is nothing but creativity. I
Okay.
would not want to glamorize design thinking and saying that design thinking is about designing stuff. I think it's a very systematic tool of problem solving that most of us do on a day-to-day basis. Except that the way we do problem solving, we are not often very systematic. And that's what design thinking can
Hmm.
bring to the table, is swimming, dancing, singing, sketching, cooking. All these are skills. There are people who are learned with taste for these skills. Like there are people who love cooking and there are those who do not like cooking so much. But can cooking be learned? Can cooking be taught? Can cooking be improved? The answer is absolutely yes. Similarly,
Okay.
creativity is a skill that can definitely be learned, taught, and improved individuals do to be more creative? That is the core question that we have. So, if I reduce design thinking to creativity, people will start understanding it better. People will able to appreciate it better, saying, so I don't have to be a designer or don't have a degree in design to be design thinking. All I need is my own thinking. The first thing is good observation skills.
Okay.
Wherever you go out skills. An example here would be mask.
Hmm.
You would see that a lot of people wear mask in a very different way. Some of them cover their nose and mouth. Some of them only wear mask. And you start observing people's behavior, then you would realize that what kind of a need can be addressed when people are wearing a mask. Can be a designer mask, can be a mask that can allow people to see and share style with others. Can there be masks which can match their shirt? All these ideas only if you are willing to observe. The first skill that all of us can develop, and I think need to develop, is good observation skills. The second thing is experimentation. Can you be more you eat, the clothes you wear, the people you meet, your hobbies, movies you watch, the books you read, etc., etc. And that is where experimentation is very critical. And I would invoke the very famous saying by Edward De Bono, who says, if you don't want to change your mind, why have one? So there's no point in having a mind if you don't want to change your mind. So experiment on a daily basis. And the third thing is, so first is observation, the second is experimentation, and third aspect is articulation. Articulation means that maintain a journal. Try and see if you can write down your daily thoughts on a journal. Try and see if you can start sketching things. Writing, sketching will help you really visualize your own thinking, communicate your thinking with others, and maybe over a period of time, these doodling habits can turn out to be very, very useful in nurturing our own innovation. And I think anybody, whether it's a student, an entrepreneur, a homemaker, an executive, almost anybody should be able to improve your own thinking and listening skills on a daily basis. I don't see any challenge with that.
That's again a mantra from you, sir. Observation, experimentation, and articulating. So
So
once,
that's my
great, thanks. So while we continue the conversation, should we take a question, because I think it's very interesting and very relevant. So we'll just weave this in. And so Suraj KV here is asking that, as you just said, design thinking, empathize, iteration, and visual thinking. Please help us understand iteration better. So does that mean any idea product need to be improved continuously to reach true potential? And during iteration, how important is to involve a customer?
which is that you need to keep working on your idea. Now, traditionally, what used to be the belief that you will ship product to your customer only if it is 100% ready. If it is not 100% ready, you will keep chipping on it and you will ship it only when it is fully ready. But now the fact is that you can ship a 70% ready product, and the remaining 30% of the readiness can happen over a period of time. And the example I would like to give to you is Gmail. Many of you may remember that the first time when you use your Gmail, it was beta. It was all Gmail beta. Even for that matter, Orkut. Till the time Orkut was in India, Orkut was always Orkut beta version onto a generally available license. The point is, when you launch a product to the market, the product or a service or an experience is 70% ready, launch it into the marketplace. And let the remaining 30% readiness come with the interaction with your customer. Because what might happen is that when you are pursuing the 100% readiness of the product, uh, you might be losing crucial time, or you might be in a situation where you ended up over engineering the product. The remaining 30% should happen in association with the customer, and that model is called ship and iterate. Ship means put it out there and then iterate it over a period of time. And we have seen the example on how. So the key is never wait for a product or a service or a solution to be 100% ready before you take it to the customer, because only customer will tell you whether it is ready or not. You can never say that. And second thing is, don't try to outguess the customer, because ultimately whether it works or not has to be judged by your customer and not by you. The customer has to say that this works, this does not work. So instead of trying to outsmart the customer or outguess the customer, what is useful is to work with the customer. So to second part of your question, Suraj, the answer would be that co-discover the problem with the customer before you guesswork out of the business. So that is what is called iterative thinking and customer centricity. I hope
Great.
that answers the question.
Yeah, I think we'll. Yeah. So Suraj says thanks, and thanks Suraj for this interesting question, and surely helps to move on to the next, because that was the question that I also wanted to ask you, sir. Is what are some of the key challenges in your experience that the large organizations today are facing, and be it whatever, was it COVID induced or otherwise, as a changing business environment, what are some of these key challenges, and where and
Mhm.
how can design thinking and design driven innovation can help them broadly, means as a whole, if you see what all happens in industries, and what is like a key challenge for organization that especially you work with, and what kind of problems are you solving?
Hmm. Good question. This COVID has really brought a paradigm shift in businesses world over. And there are two or three things which I would like to call out. The first thing is digital adoption. And I'll just Satya Nadella, who said that 2 years worth of digital transformation has happened in 2 months. Look at the comfort that almost everybody is having with a Zoom call right now.
True.
Nobody thinks that it is out of place. It has become
Yeah.
such a normal thing. People working from home. Now, this is something that might have happened in 2030 with heavy traffic and heavy cost of travel, etc. But it has happened in 2020. It is almost accelerated by 10 years. And this is a huge shift, both in terms of employee engagement as well as customer engagement. So, what the organizations of the future would look like is a much more dispersed workforce. And when your employee is working from home or maybe working from anywhere, how do you do employee engagement? How do you do team building? How do you create a camaraderie in them? How do you ensure that the work gets delivered? The supervisor is able to supervise. So one of the very critical things that HR needs to learn is how do we make our employees more autonomous, business and their lives in a very autonomous manner instead of being told as what you need to be doing. That's one very critical paradigm shift which I'm experiencing on the employee front. On the customer front, the customer all of a sudden has woken up to a huge array of choices. And look at the e-commerce industry. While COVID has disbanded several businesses world over, but COVID has come as a blessing in disguise for the e-commerce industry. E-commerce has boomed. It has created lots of employment, both primary and secondary employment, given lots of choices, and has gotten both sellers and customers on board in a very small amount of time. Which means that lot of change in terms of industry dynamics would happen. Some of the industries which were trained in past, were digitally savvy, will suffer as a result. So my work primarily revolves around three aspects. One is employee engagement. Second is creativity. How do you launch creative products and services? And third is customer engagement. And in all of these three aspects, I believe that the companies which are more experimentative will outlast the companies which are basking on their previous glories. Reduce the cost of failure. You cannot take a single idea and bet your entire business on it. entire company on that particular idea. You need to have a portfolio of ideas. Some will succeed, some will fail. And you also need, when looking at a portfolio of ideas, you also need to develop failure tolerance or risk tolerance. And for that, managers need to give what we call as psychological safety to their employees, especially when they are not in a physical proximity. So, in summary, seismic change for the employee engagement, a seismic change for new product development, and a significant change for customer engagement. In all three dimensions, the companies which are more experimentative, the ones which are more failure tolerant, and where managers can give psychological safety to their employees will be net winners. So, that's my view.
Okay. Great. Thanks for that, sir. Uh, so Nikhil K just wants to build on the fact that iteration over time, probably it's more applicable to the software or the digital products.
Mhm.
Do the principles still remain the same when it comes to anything which is a, say, a hardware device or a physical product? Uh, how do you look at that?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So the first thing is that when you iterate a product, you do not have to iterate with the masses. That's
Okay.
very critical.
Hmm.
So you can launch a product or you can do a soft launch of a product with a customer base which can give you feedback very quickly and
Okay.
on which you can improve your product very quickly. For instance, if I have to launch a new kind of sanitizer which has qualities beyond sanitizing my hands, and the sanitizer could have qualities which can possibly increase my immune system, a sanitizer that can have qualities around fragrance or mosquito repellent or something of that sorts. Okay, or maybe something that moistens my hand also, because after using sanitizer for a long time you lose hand moisture because it has
True.
alcohol.
Yeah.
So it can have this additional quality that it doesn't takes moisture away from your hand. Instead of launching it to the mass market, you might want to launch it in a specific customer segment, see how it works, and very rapidly you iterate it. And the thinking that needs to go is that, and please listen to this very carefully, all of you, the market where you learn from is not necessarily the market where you earn from. Okay, so you don't have to earn from the same market where you are learning from. So you learn quickly from that specific market so that your cost of failure is low, so that your cost of experimentation is low. And once you have iterated enough number of times, you should be able to ship your product out. The only problem that people often experience is their unwillingness to iterate. They want their product or a service to be right first time. And frankly speaking, if you're trying to innovate anything, you can never be right first time. You should be willing to be wrong first time, wrong second time, wrong third time, and maybe right the fourth time. But not many people are willing to wait for the fourth time to be right. They just want to be right first time. And as a result, they either ship a substandard product or they wait for too long, wherein they have lost the opportunity altogether. So that's where a bit of courage is required and a sort of calculated risk is required. I hope that answers the question, Nikhil.
Great. Nikhil is happy. So one last question from my side. All what you just spoke, I think
Mhm.
I was. It was almost leading that this is how a startup works. This
Mhm.
is what startups do. That okay, come with something, tweak something, launch something, pivot on something.
Mhm.
So is this approach more aligned for a startup, or is it also for bigger organizations, or is there any kind of a dynamic there when it comes to a
Mhm.
bigger organization versus a startup?
So it is applicable to a bigger organization provided the bigger organization wants to behave like a startup. Let us
Okay.
understand what is meant by a startup. Now, there are multiple definitions. I can think of startup as a company which is young.
Hmm.
I can think of startup as a company which is small or a company which is growing fast. These are three predominantly used definition of startup: size, rate of growth, and
Hmm.
age.
Okay.
Whereas a large enterprise is not growing that rapidly because
Yeah.
it might be operating in a saturating industry.
Hmm.
Obviously, it is not small and it is not new. Whereas what we need to understand is that, can you construct a large organization as a series or a cluster of smaller organizations where each of the divisions or functions of the company is given sufficient autonomy to work on its own and be
Hmm.
experimentative. As
Okay.
Malcolm Gladwell very famously said in his book Tipping Point, any number above 150 becomes unmanageable.
Hmm.
And the same number is used in military units. If I look at military world over, the
Hmm.
maximum size for a unit in military is 150. It doesn't go beyond 150. They always break military into 150 maximum size
Oh.
contingencies
Hmm.
and these contingents. And that is where the command and control can be observed. Beyond that, it becomes unruly for you to manage. So if you can construct a startup or a large organization as a cluster of startups where each unit is given a clear charter,
Hmm.
given budget to experiment, and given sort of goalposts on how do you measure your success, which is measurement criteria, I think they can very well behave like a startup. And the philosophies which I had been advocating are very much amicable there. In fact, in my book, Design Your Thinking, I talk about 30 companies, 30 Indian companies, by the way, which have practiced design thinking or aspects of design thinking. These examples include Mahindra and Mahindra, Big Bazaar, Titan, Tanishq, Wipro, Infosys, Eicher Motors, which is your Royal Enfield, Maruti Suzuki, Hero Group, Honda Motor Corporation, Yamaha, Toyota. A lot of examples I have quoted, both
Okay.
Indian and foreign companies, and not
Great.
just Apple and Google, where I'm saying that if need be, the startups can remain that way for a very long time till they scale. And if I look at companies like Amazon, the way Jeff Bezos runs Amazon is very much with the startup culture. So
True.
I think the principles are universal in nature, is what
Hmm.
I would like to think.
Great. Great. And again, thanks for bringing this up, sir. I was about to ask you on that, that if you could just elaborate on what is the book about, because
Mhm.
I'm sure you must have given some examples and quoted from it. But if you could just give us a
Yeah,
glimpse of what the structure of the book is and
sure, sure. Yeah. So if you can let me switch on my video,
yes, sir,
I'll
please.
be, yeah, switch on the video. So this is the book. You can see over here.
Oh, wow, great. Yes.
This is called Design Your Thinking, and this has been published by Penguin Random House.
Mm-hmm.
So this book captures close to 400 workshops and engagements which I've done with large corporates over the last 15 years on creative problem solving and innovation. That is what this book captures.
Okay.
And this book has 10 chapters in it. Each of the chapters talk about one very specific aspect of design thinking. The way I construe design thinking is a five-stage process.
Okay.
The first stage of design thinking is inspire. Inspire means setting the agenda. That why do we need to innovate? And I think
Hmm.
many times leaders fail to set the agenda of innovation. You need more money, you need lesser people to leave your company, you need more customer cannot be the inspiration enough. The inspiration has to be much more powerful than that. For
Hmm.
example, the inspiration for MID ID innovation is to be the most sought after institution for teaching design thinking in the country. That is the inspiration. And
Right.
then you can use design thinking, lateral thinking, critical thinking, any type of thinking to be able to meet the other. That's the first step. The second is empathize and define, where I've spoken about the whole host of methods which a company can use to go out and empathize with the real people, real stakeholders. The third aspect is where we look at ideation. And here again, I have given some 20 methods of ideation in the book, various methods by which you can increase both the quantity and the quality of your ideas. The fourth stage is prototype and experiment and test your idea with the real customers. And final stage, which is critical, is scale, is how do you scale your idea.
Right.
Apart from that, in this book, I also talk about how to become a design thinker yourself, that what are
Okay.
some of the methods that you can use to think like a design thinker. And as I said, there are 400 workshops that go into this book. There are 30 Indian cases that go into this book.
Wow.
And there are 50 books that go into this book. So I've read close to 50 books on creative problem solving, innovation culture, psychology of creativity, sociology,
Wow.
economics,
Wow.
and of course, management of innovation, and 50 research papers from tier A journals. So all of that is baked into this book. This book is doing pretty okay right now. But what I would strongly recommend to the audience here is pick a copy of the book and get benefited from it. This book also has a chart at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
Let me show the chart to all of you. This is the chart. So this chart
Okay.
talks about, this is a summary mind map. This is
Mm-hmm.
the entire summary of the book is in the form of one single page, which is
Oh
in
wow.
A3.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is that it's in colored print. And
Okay.
the idea is that somebody can just tear this piece of paper and put it on your work desk so that it's a ready reminder
Ready
of some of
Reckoner.
the methods, a ready reckoner of the methods that you can possibly use. So that's what the book is all about.
Great, great. Thanks again, sir. Because at least in my knowledge, because we deal with this from an academic side in depth, um, and frankly, we haven't come across a resource or a book which really talks about the Indian case studies. Because what typically we find is, as you rightly said, the Apples and Googles, which is pretty known and which is already established. But what we really need is these kind of insights for what works with us here as a country, as an economy, and as a culture as well. So thanks for giving that brief intro of the book,
Thank you
and
so much.
surely I think we will surely look at other different ways also where we can really kind of make sure that the books are available to more and more people, because as you rightly said, it's almost like a manual, right? If I have a ready reckoner, if I have a toolkit and all of that, this is what we need in today's time. And what better than a manual for design thinking?
Thank you so much.
Cool. I think we have some time left, and there's some questions also. So we'll just take that and then we'll conclude with this.
Absolutely.
So, anonymous attendee, I hope that he's or she's listening to this. He's asking, what is your view on Horizon 1, 2, 3 ideas? How is it to be taken ahead, which will generate more value? So
Sure.
I think they are referring to that Horizon framework.
Yeah. So the three horizon framework is a very useful tool for problem solving and creativity.
Mhm.
And the way I look at three horizons, I mean, to get all of you up to speed as to what is three horizon framework, for those of you who are not aware of this construct. So the three horizon framework essentially comes from McKinsey and Company. And McKinsey came up with this very interesting model where they are saying that any organizational development can be broadly broken into three horizons of planning. The horizon one looks at the mid term, which is about 1 or 2 quarters. The horizon two looks at things which are about 1 or 2 years, and the that's horizon two. And the horizon three looks at things which are above, say, 3 years or 4 years. In design thinking, most of the work that we do is essentially around the horizon one, which is how do you solve a problem on an immediate basis and in a manner which makes it more enduring and more sustainable. Whereas if you can define a problem which is of horizon three, which is say, how do I create a better customer experience for my ongoing engagement with my customers? And a good example for you to think about is cars. That when people will have to spend a lot of their time in the car, maybe attending a meeting from a car, or eating in their car, or perhaps even sleeping in their car, the cars will have to be redesigned completely differently. So that can be a Horizon 3 project. So while most of the work that happens on design thinking is Horizon 1 and Horizon 2, but nothing should stop you from looking at Horizon 3 as well. And if you look at Jeff Bezos, the way he talks about design thinking, he says that he is a horizon 3 person. He doesn't look at the next 1 year or next 2 years. He only looks at the next 5 years. And design thinking really allows you to be able to do so for the long run. So that is how it can very much be amicable to the third horizon as well. It depends upon the kind of objectives that you have, but nothing stops you from looking at horizon 3 in design thinking.
Great. That that helps. We again have Suraj. I think he's very curious, and he again wants to know that for a bigger organization, if they want their employees to start design thinking, what is your view? That how can they initiate it? Means how, where should they start?
I think the starting point of design thinking, in my view, for a large organization is to take up a project and see if you can solve that particular project or that particular problem in a different manner. So instead of looking at incremental innovation of the 5% or the 10% type, can you look at a particular problem which is a tricky problem to solve and look at a 5 times or a 10 times better solution? And I strongly believe in this saying that incrementalism is the death of innovation. If you only
Okay.
think 5%, 10%, then you can never ever think of 5 times and 10 times. Because a five
Lovely.
time, 10 times kind of a thinking requires a very different mindset than a
Hmm.
5%, 10% type of a thinking. So the inspiration can either come from your supervisor or from the organization, or it can come from the individual in question. And I think the individuals should be able to take up a project. For instance, if I am the HR manager of a company, and one of the challenges that HR manager would face is employee engagement. And one of the metrics of employee engagement would be employee turnover or attrition. Instead of looking at how do I reduce my attrition by 1% or 2%, can you take up a charter and ask yourself this question, that can I reduce my attrition by half, which is if there are 10 people leaving every quarter, can I make it 5 people leaving or 4 people leaving? The moment you give yourself this charter that I have to cut it down by half, only then you will be thinking of creative ideas. Till such time you would not. And the second thing is try to be disciplined about it. So if you follow some of the methods which I have shared in the book, possibly you will be able to pick up some nuggets of discipline, and that would be, I guess, very useful to you.
Great. Thanks. And I think with this, are there any more questions? Guys, you can please type it in the Q&A tab or in the chat, and that we can then conclude. Great. I think it is done. And thank you, sir. I think it was again a very, as I said, even if it is a small half an hour, 45 minutes conversation, there is so much to be learned and so much to be unraveled hereafter. So I hope that this conversation was useful for everybody in the audience. And as you heard it right from the man himself, please grab a copy of the book, and I'm sure there is much more material with him for the next edition or the next version of the book being getting ready. So best of luck to you, sir, on your other endeavors and other ways where you want to really propagate design and design thinking to the world at large. So thanks for this.
Special thanks to Dr. Pavan Soni for his time and sharing
Thank you
value
so
add
much. Thank you. All the
takeaways
best
from
to you.
his
Take care.
innovation journey. For more questions, to reach out to us offline on LinkedIn. We recognize the need to reach out to thousands of aspiring innovators and help them gain the skills and knowledge required for their dreams to become a reality. Tune in to our next webinar next Thursday, 11th Feb, to learn about accelerating digital transformation. We encourage you to connect with us via our social channels. For those interested in becoming top-notch innovators, we invite you to explore our courses that will fast-track your career path. So log on to www.mitidinnovation.com to kickstart your innovation journey with MIT ID Innovation. Let's learn, innovate, lead. Special thanks once again, Dr. Soni. And yours innovatively, Priya Dhawan signing off. To everyone, stay connected, stay safe, and keep innovating every day. Thank you once again, everyone, for joining in.
Thank you.